Good afternoon, everybody. Can I say that it's a great honour to be invited along today to speak on behalf of the Women and Children, Justice for Women and Children movement, and I'd like to thank the organisers for asking me to come along. Now, I've got the greatest admiration for these women who've actually suffered and are standing up for themselves, standing up for other victims and working for justice on their behalf. But how did we come to be in this position in our country, which is one of the most civilized countries in the world, or was supposed to be? How did we get into this mess? Well, we can't begin to think about how we solve a problem until we understand what the causes are. Anybody that lives somewhere where these things are not part of their daily lives cannot understand what is going on. They don't know about it because it hasn't been reported over the years in the mass media. Pardon? You can't hear me at the back, can you? Right, I'll shout down the microphone a bit more. Okay, if you live in a nice part of the country where this isn't happening, you wouldn't be aware of it. You wouldn't understand the horrific nature of it because it hasn't been reported over the decades, but it's starting to come out. That's because of some very brave journalists, some very brave activists, people like Tommy Robinson, for example. The name comes to mind. Somebody who campaigns for these people and puts his own life on the line. And somebody like Patrick McLaughlin, who wrote the book Easy Meat, a detailed and comprehensive history of what has happened. It's only because of people like that that the general population are starting to understand what it's all about. This, in my opinion, is the biggest social scandal in English history. Yes. And this exploitation of young girls and women is something that is incomprehensible to normal people. It's not even lust or paedophilia as such. It's a kind of sexual sadism which is about destroying a person and the spirit of that person. So what is in the minds of people who are capable of these types of crimes? What makes it possible? Now, the term, when the media had described the people who are responsible, they've used the term Asian men, which is deeply insulting, quite rightly, to many men who come from the continent of Asia, who have nothing whatsoever to do with this, and their culture has nothing to do with it. Now, of course, there are plenty of rapists and paedophiles amongst the general population at large, but the overwhelming number of people who are responsible for this kind of industrialized gang rape and sexual exploitation have been proved to be Muslim of the Islamic religion. Now, no less a person than Jack Straw, the former Home Secretary, said in 2011, quote, "There is a specific problem which involves Pakistani heritage men who target vulnerable white girls." Can you imagine what would have happened if this had been organised rape by white men against Muslim girls? Do you think for a moment that the political and media establishment would not have come down on this like a ton of bricks and ended it before it even got started, never mind cover it up for decades?
Disgusting!
The victims of this, the white girls and the Sikh girls, were supposed to be quiet so that they didn't rock the multicultural boat. Do you remember somebody saying that? And also somebody said they should keep their mouths shut for the sake of diversity. Now, why did they do that? Why did the authorities not actually try to uncover these crimes and pursue them? Well, I think it is simple fear. First of all, fear of being called racist or Islamophobe. And secondly, straightforward fear. Because the people who do this kind of things are capable of doing anything. And it takes great courage to stand up to them. which is why I have so much admiration for the victims. Now, some Muslims take a very fundamental and literalist interpretation of their ideology, and they regard Muhammad as a perfect man and a model for all time. And as we know, Muhammad was a warlord who took many sex slaves, which is permissible under Islamic culture. He married a 6-year-old and consummated the marriage when she was 9-year-old. So the age of consent in Islamic culture is a lot more elastic than it would be in Western culture. The Quran lays down rules for how women must dress and behave, and restricts her sexual freedom. A woman does not have equal rights with a man in Islam. An Islamic woman is very much a second-class citizen, and a non-Islamic woman is very much a third-class citizen, even if that. Now, there is a mindset amongst some Muslims to regard defenceless non-Muslim women as fair game, as sex slaves. They are simply inferior human beings who can be exploited on the scale that we have seen, and so much better for them because they can actually make money out of it. And that's what we've seen. You all know about the minicab offices and the fast food outlets, which act as a network that allows criminals to exploit these victims of sex slavery. Now, sometimes when these cases have gone to court, there have been many convictions, but they just represent the tip of an iceberg about what is actually happening. And the details that have come out of those cases are truly sickening. And the communities that these people come from are also complicit, because they have not actually helped to bring these people to justice or to report on their fellow Muslims when they had the opportunity to do something about it. So what can we do about it? Well, this is what a government should do. It should give the police the resources that they need in money and manpower to allow them to pursue these cases and bring the criminals to justice. The criminals who are convicted should be given the strongest sentences possible in order to deter other criminals. And where these criminals have dual nationality, British nationality should be taken away. At the end of their sentence, they should be deported back to where they come from. And they shouldn't be allowed to hide behind the human rights legislation that protects them in so many cases. And the UK's laws that are there to protect innocent people and children and women should be implemented irrespective of the race, religion, ethnicity of the victim or the criminal. Law should be equally applied to everybody. We've got to end the age of mass uncontrolled immigration once and for all. The only hope of integrating the people that we've already got is to turn off the tap of millions more people flooding into the country. And let me say this, a literalist, fundamentalist interpretation of Islam is simply incompatible with Western civilization.
Doesn't mix. Doesn't work.
And our governments should understand that and do something about it. Islam offers you two choices. You can either submit or you can resist. And any English man or woman, British man or woman who's got blood in their veins should never submit. Now, the other thing that we should do, of course, is end the culture of political correctness where we are not allowed to say the truth. The cult of Muhammad has made these things possible to some of his more literally minded followers, and that is a simple truth which we must be able to say and people must understand. Now, if you want to protect your children and your grandchildren, then you have to organise politically. It's great to go out on demonstrations, but the politicians can ignore them. All they care about is losing votes. That's all that matters to politicians. If they're in